Properties, device, Yeti. Okay. Now they can hear me. All right. Fixed it sooner than before. So it's me, Cyber Warrior, Cyber Warrior Studios. We're on Security Happy Hour. Shout out to Meryl Vernon, She Who Hacks, for giving me the idea to start doing topics every week. Um, Before we get started, I do want to give one other shout out due to some situations I ran into with a friend of mine this week, Alyssa Miller. Seriously, thank you for all you did in helping to get my friend's social media back up and running. And if you, after this stream, go head over to Fancy Friday, join Alyssa and all her friends over there, and jump on that. I'll be watching Black Widow with the family, but you guys are more than welcome to follow up with Alyssa and get on our Fancy Fridays. Now, getting into it, this week is all about training. A lot of people either know or don't know Kim Crawley and Phillip Wylie, who have been doing amazing things for the community and doing amazing things for training and just the information they put out. Now, if you haven't seen their introductions, if you don't know who they are, look, go head back into the playlist of Security Happy Hour. I've had Kim on here twice. Phil joined near the end of New Year's Eve special, I believe it was. So amazing people. So I really do hope you go ahead and check out those other episodes, because I don't want to get bogged down too much with how you got here spiel. I'd rather really talk about training and what you guys are doing now. So for starters, Kim, I know you got a lot of big news coming out. So tell us kind of, as far as training, what you got going on and what you have in the works to kind of help people along their journeys.
Started a job with one of the best cybersecurity training companies in the world, which is Hack the Box. And they're such a cool, innovative company. They've got all kinds of virtualized environments for people to test their pen testing skills in, like the Pro Labs and our hacking labs. We've got our very first business CTF coming up. I believe it's July 26th or the weekend of July 26th. And that is huge. And there are a lot of major tech companies involved with that, including Microsoft. So as a company, we're really excited about it. I was hired to launch Hack the Box's new blog. So we launched the blog on June 11th, I believe. Was it June 10th? I think it was June 10th. And wow, it's so great to finally, be in charge of a tech company's blog. I feel like that's a major step up for me. So we have like several articles published so far. Many of them are written by me. Some of them are written by other people who work for Hack the Box, who do really cool stuff. We've got a lot of really exciting blog posts planned in the future as well. My idea with the blog is that we differentiate from our competition a little bit by being like an online magazine that hackers want to read, not just promoting our products and services. So, I think one of the coolest things we published was a little earlier this week. One of our CTF researchers totally did this like huge analysis of a CVE, that it was a buffer overflow vulnerability, and they totally dissected it. They showed what they did in like Wireshark, all the steps involved, the commands that he run. Minato is his name. All the commands that he run, and so a really technical piece full of code and specific instructions for what he did. So I'm really proud about that. And so this is a real major step up in my career. And Hack the Box is known for being like one of the best training companies out there, very innovative. So
That's awesome.
I'm just really happy about it. I mean, everyone there is absolutely fantastic. And then the other thing I have on the horizon is it's not really cybersecurity training related like Hack the Box is, but I have a book coming up. It was going to be published in August. I think they moved back the publishing date to October. But it's called 8 Steps to Better Security, a Simple Cyber Resilience Guide for Business. And I really enjoyed working with Phil on the Pen Tester Blueprint last year. But the Pen Tester Blueprint is essentially Phil's baby. Like, his ideas are the genesis of that book, and my job was to just blend in with it and expand upon it. And I'm really proud of what I did with him. But Eight Steps is my first book where I'm the sole writer and it's based on my own idea. So the idea behind Eight Steps to Better Security is my audience are non-technical business people. And I know from my years of work that a lot of companies don't know what the hell they're doing when it comes to cybersecurity. So I break it down into 8 steps that include hiring the right people and preparing your incident response and being prepared for regulatory compliance and stuff like that, and security testing. I made the very important point that pen testing is great, but you need a certain level of security maturity before pen testing is appropriate. So
Yeah,
I'm I'm
definitely.
really really proud of that book because it's based on my own ideas. So yeah, my career has just been upwards and onwards since the last time I spoke with you.
Yeah, and I really like the fact that the Hack the Box blog is a lot about training and a lot about how to do certain things and how to advance in that realm. And even the book itself that you're coming out with is about training. It's just not necessarily about training cybersecurity people. It's about training executives in cybersecurity and how to better their security posture. And that's one of the things with the company I work for that we talk about is not everybody is ready for a red team assessment or an actual pen test, even though they throw that term around and like, oh, I need one of these for basically a check the box. And then you look at their security plan, their vulnerability management program, their patching cycle, and things like that. And it's just, dude, you're nowhere near ready for even a pen test, let alone a red team engagement. So, yeah, I really like that aspect of things and the fact that you got a book coming out to help executives hit that level of maturity. So thank you for that, truly. And we'll get back to a little more of how we can do the training on the side as far as the blog and the book. But Philip, being that what he has done, and if I believe, I could be mistaken, you were an instructor for a while for some of these boot camps and some of these trainings around there. You know, what are you doing now, and how does that help with the training aspect of things that are going on?
Yeah, kind of give people, I'm not going to give them a full background, but I've been teaching as an adjunct professor at Dallas College for the past 3.5 years, teaching ethical hacking. And I also started up a web app pen testing course there. And a lot of the stuff I do on my own outside of any companies or colleges is I teach workshops at different conferences and stuff. I usually do a lot of free workshops at different conferences, different B-Sides conferences, and that sort of thing. And so most of my pen testing career, I've been working as a pen tester, but since from about September up until June, I was working as a full-time trainer. And so I'm going back into being a full-time pen tester and then just doing my education efforts on my own. I also run the Pwn School Project, which is more of an education-based meetup. And I started it as a way to help my students learn once they got past that ethical hacking class at Dallas College, because that's the only course they had. They asked me, what can we do next to learn more? And so I'd considered starting up this meetup with more education-based. And then I had a couple people in the Dallas community that were members of Dallas Hackers Association tried to sign up for my summer semester course at Dallas College, but they couldn't get transferred in time to take the course. So I was really disappointed they couldn't get into the class. So that at that point, I thought, yeah, I'm going to follow through with doing something unofficial on my own kind of thing to educate people. And I started the Pwn School Project. And so I've had different people each month, and I run 2 meetings. I was running 2 physical meetings, one in Denton, Texas, and one in Dallas, Texas. And back in February 2019, I started streaming my Dallas meetings. And then when the pandemic hit, that really worked out well because I would just went all virtual for both of those meetups. One of the things I'm looking to do is take the Pwn School Project and make it more education focused, put some free learning content up there. My goal is going to be to help someone get up to speed to where they're able to go maybe start looking at some pen testing certs like Pen Test Plus or EJPT or something like that after they go through this training, and just kind of help people, get a good start, because sometimes people aren't ready for the OSCP yet, or even EJPT or some of those courses. So I plan to start creating more content for that. Maybe some live lectures and stuff. I've taken some of my lectures from my course at Dallas College, which is based on the Pen Test Plus, and put it out there on YouTube for people to learn from. And so I get asked by different conferences to do even some paid training. So my training efforts will be more kind of on my own now, unless I could find someone else that I could do something part-time through, which actually this is my last semester at Dallas College, because kind of the restrictions on the things I can do, like my lab setup, I have to go through someone that manages the lab to request updates. So not having the freedom just to change that when I want to, and then working for a college, if you want to change something, some things are hard to change right then. You may have to wait till next semester, to get budget for different lab stuff and all that. So, it's a lot easier when I've got the freedom to do things on my own.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned, eLearn Security, or INE, I think it is now,
Yes.
and the EJPT. You mentioned Pentest Plus, OSCP.
Mhm.
So between you and Kim and whoever's in chat, look, if you got questions about training, please ask. I beg of you. That way we can get your questions answered. That's one of the primary reasons I'm doing topics. But talking about those, I have seen a lot of chatter about comparing certifications, right? We had a huge thing when EC Council and Alyssa Miller put them on blast about comparing CEH to all these other different certifications. And now everybody learns at their own pace, right? There's no one right way to learn anything. Everybody has their own way of doing things. But in terms of, and this is just in your two perspective opinions, in terms of like your Pen Test Plus, your EJPT, and your OSCP, how would you compare them? Because personally, I look as the OSCP as somebody who has already been doing either pen test. Personally, I think you should have already been a pen tester, because of the fact that they require a report, they require you. Don't get me wrong, people like to say some of their boxes are way too CTF-ish. I've talked to the staff that's created them, and the staff actually works in pen testing, and it's shit they've seen doing actual pen tests. So as CTF-ish as it may seem, it's shit you see in reality. So I kind of take theirs as more of a, you should at least have a year or two under your belt before you do an OSCP. But again, I could be wrong. EJPT and their training and the way they structure things, and when I started going through the course with one of my old jobs, I never finished it. But I really liked what they had to offer. So what's your take on the Pen Test Plus, the EJPT, and the OSCP? Because a lot of people look at those to get into pen testing as far as certifications they need.
Yeah, I really think the EJPT and Pen Test Plus are going to help you get prepared. Teaching my course at Dallas College, I actually went to the Pen Test Plus curriculum. The first semester I was using Georgia Weidman's book, and the Pen Test Plus was just starting to come out that year. I think they had a beta course out by summer of 2018. And part of the reason I switched was to let students, prepare for a certification, because, certifications, sometimes help you get your foot in the door. And one of the things I liked about the Pen Test Plus, I did a CompTIA Train the Trainer course on the Pen Test Plus, and going through that and being an experienced pen tester, I really liked what I saw. There was a good focus on methodology, whereas my experience, I never got certified, but I took the CEH course in 2010, and it was basically a bunch of tools, not how to do a pen test. Here's how you run Metasploit. Here's how you run this. And you've got to know the methodology. That's pretty important, because before you get into trying to hack things, there's even vulnerability assessments that you do that you're not necessarily hacking into things. So I really like the methodology piece. The EJPT, I like the fact that it's, hands-on, you're getting experience there with that. And like you said, with OSCP, that's something you really need experience. I got my OSCP, passed it in 2013, and I'd been pen testing for a little over a year, and it wasn't easy for me. So I think someone is wanting to do OSCP, kind of my recommended path has been EJPT ECPPT, and then the OSCP, because you're going to get that experience there. One of the things I say too with those eLearn or INE courses is it teaches you methodology. I'd say what OSCP does is they're teaching you more of the boutique pen test firm methodology. You're going in, you're trying to hack into it. You're not listing all the vulnerabilities. They don't have you list all the vulnerabilities in that report. Real world, you're listing vulnerabilities where they're exploitable or not. So they're teaching a boutique pen testing way of doing things, which is great. But I had a friend from the local community that I recommended to a company I was working at, and he got a pen test job. He had been through the OSCP, and when he started work, he said, wow, this is nothing like the OSCP. But like I said, it's back to that boutique pen test firm, especially pen test firm mentality compared to real world everyday pen testing. And so I think it's good to have both of those. It's good to, because you're going to perform pen tests when you're getting started out. You're not going to get to do the cool stuff like you would for Lars Consulting or some of these boutique firms where you don't have to go through and validate all these TLS or SSL related findings. You're finding things that are really high risk, trying to exploit those and documenting that. But that's kind of later in your career. So the things like the eLearn stuff, as well as Pentest Plus, learning methodology is very important.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Kim, what's your take? I mean, you seem to be in agreement with everything Phil has said, and though I don't disagree, and I have a few more talking points on it. What's your take on it? Do you think, there's a different way to go about things, or is there a way to do things better, or is he about right in his, approaching the matter?
I do agree with Phil. I mean, especially about, the CH not being as useful as people used to think it was. I'm in an interesting situation because Phil and I wrote about all these pen testing related certs in the Pen Tester Blueprint. And now I work for a company that considers all those companies to be their competitor. But so keep that in mind that, my views are not unbiased. If I was to detach myself again and recommend that someone definitely go down the certification path, I have always had a really good experience with CompTIA. I think CompTIA has many of the best introductory certs in a lot of different areas of IT, like the A plus and the Security plus and whatnot. And when they came out with the Pen Test Plus, that seemed to cover a lot of the most important, general pen testing methodology with network vulnerability scanning and some things that can be applicable to bug hunting and a little bit of physical security and social engineering, just covering the 101 before you specialize in a particular area if you do. So, if someone was to stop me on the street and say, where should I start these days, I would probably point them in the Pen Test Plus direction.
See, now you make me want to take that certification. It came out after I'd already gotten in the field. So for me, I've never looked at it. I've never even considered it. I had my CEH V8 back in, I think, a year after you got your CEH, Phil, I think, is when I got mine. I think I got mine in like 14 or 15.
I just took the course. I never took the exam.
Nah, so I took the exam, and it is very much a multitude of at the time, now they came out with their master cert, so they may have changed things, but at the time it was very much, hey, what does this show? Is this Nmap? Is this, XTOL or this, that, and the third? So I weigh heavily on the multiple choice tests just because I feel like it doesn't show your capabilities. But at the same time, my problem with CompTIA, and this isn't no fault of their own, it is just the industry we work in, is all the test dumps out there, and people abuse the shit out of test dumps. So it waters down the cert because you see people get certifications and then you ask them questions and they're like, I don't know. And you're like, oh my God. And you saw this in the DoD with the Security Plus, and people get the Security Plus and you ask them what port 443 is and they'd be like, I don't know. Dude, like, are you fucking kidding me? So that's my only issue with multiple choice tests. And again, as someone who has never seen the Pen Test Plus, never even looked at the curriculum, I don't know what it has to offer. So I do hope that at least the curriculum for people that do go through it and truly understand it is something that, to your point, teaches methodology, because methodology is a huge thing that you have to understand. You have to understand the attacker kill chain. You have to understand how these things flow. So if the Pen Test Plus is the way to go, by all means, that and the EJPT, that when I started the course, again, left the company before I could finish it, but it was another amazing curriculum for training methodology and how to do these things. To the point of the OSCP and your boutique firms, you're right. I've written pen test reports. I've looked at pen test reports, and you have to list basically every vulnerability that is on a machine. Whereas when you go through the OSCP, there's only ever really one vulnerability to get in, and then one vulnerability to escalate privileges. So you're right. It's very much, you should be able to list and be able to do a report, because a pen test is, in essence, everything. It is, you're not going in there trying to be quiet. You are the noisiest motherfucker around. Like, if you don't see me, you've got bigger issues. That's my view of a pen test. Like, you're running Nmap at full blown capability.
Yeah.
So yeah.
If you don't mind me interjecting, Cyber Warrior, and I completely agree with you about the limitations of multiple choice questions, because you know that one of those choices has got to be the correct one. That's very much Hack the Box's philosophy, that you learn by doing. So Hack the Box does have certifications of completion for our hacking labs and our pro labs. And everything at Hack the Box is not a multiple choice test, but here's this virtualized network, or here's this VM, and show us what you can do. And we have some real, like, I'm speaking to some of our labs designers, and they just blow me away with the vulnerabilities that they put in there. Like, there's a blog post that's going to come out on our blog in a couple of weeks where I interview one of our Pro Labs designers, OXO Cube. And you know that ReEvil attack recently that went through one MSP and hit like 1,000 companies with ransomware? This Pro Lab that OXO Cube made is a very similar scenario, and Hack the Box has had that Pro Lab running, long before the ReEvil attack. It's basically, the scenario is that there is an MSP, because of the kind of system privileges an MSP needs to have in order to manage those services. You can get admin access to all of these machines if you just privilege escalate on the MSP level. And that's what I think it's called APT Labs. That's what this particular Pro Lab is called. And when I interviewed him about how he designed it, it just blew me away. So if you really want training that is really, really topical and is all by doing instead of reading a book and answering multiple choice questions, then that's what my company does very much, and I think is really cool. So sorry about that. I just had to interject.
Oh no, you're good, because I've looked at those labs and they're fantastic. I've got a buddy right now, Devil Ray, who does Devil Ray pen testing on my channel, has been going through those a lot of those labs. So kudos to Hack the Box for those labs and the way those things are put together. Now, for both of you, I have a few questions already in the chat. One of which is, if you're going for web app pen testing, and this is from Cyber Papa, Eric Bellardo, what certifications or what training do you recommend for the web app side of things to kind of guide people around that path and pushing towards the web app things? Because even I myself really struggle with the web app side of things, because it's not as simple in networking where you scan for ports, look for the vulnerabilities in the application. With a web app, there's so much more to it, and it's really hard to pin down a methodology in web app pen testing.
Yeah, as far as certification based training, not necessarily have to have a certification. I have the SANS GWAPT cert. I went through that course in 2014. But interesting enough, this was back before an INE owned eLearn Security. I did their web app pen testing course because I got moved in, it was the second year of my pen testing career. I got moved over to an application only pen test team. And so they were doing heavy web app, the old group I was doing network too. So I had to get my skills up on web app pen testing and mobile pen testing. I did the eLearn courses, and I learned more from the eLearn courses than I did the SANS web app pen testing course. Because in my opinion, the SANS course is more geared towards infrastructure pen testers. If you find web services on a pen test, this is how you can leverage it. It really doesn't train you to be a web app pen tester. They got some more advanced courses, but the eLearn courses are good. Pen Tester Lab is really good as well. That's really good hands-on, focused on web app. They even teach you stuff if there's a possible way to get a shell during a pen test, they show you, and it's relatively inexpensive.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope that answers your question, Eric. Kim, do you have any other advice on web app side of things?
My most natural answer would be to promote some of the pro labs and hacking labs that Hack the Box has. But we also have a lot of modules in our HCB Academy that are specific to web vulnerabilities. So our academy is interactive like our labs are, but in a different way. Like, you're not necessarily trying to exploit vulnerabilities, but there is a lot of interactivity. You're engaging in the course, and it really varies depending on what the course is. But we have a lot of modules in our HCB Academy that are specific to the web. So that's all I would add to what Phil said, but I very much see eye to eye with Phil too. I don't have any experience with Pen Tester Lab though, quite honestly, but.
Yeah,
and I have to interject too. I'm a big fan of the Hack the Box and Try Hack Me. Those are good sources. And one of the things too I did with because I taught a web app pen testing course, and what I did, my classes weren't just read the book or do this. You had to do hands-on lab. It's very important because that's one of the ways I learned the best. I learned a lot of stuff in my career coming up, just building labs and stuff at home. So definitely the hands-on stuff, like Hack the Box and Try Hack Me are good additions. I do like that Hack the Box has added the academy. So that's a good idea to add more education because, one time a lot of people were using it to study for the OSCP, and it was a way to test what you learn. But I do like that they're adding more educational content to it.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things I will say, and this is just because I have a CISP, if you link your account, I think you have to be a member to Hack the Box, if I'm not mistaken. But you can link it to ISC squared. That way, everything you do on Hack the Box counts as credits towards CEUs for your CISP, which I gotta get back into that, but I'll do that in 2 years.
Not only do some of our regular programs for the consumer market count toward ISC. I always mispronounce their name, ISC squared. But when we have a CTF, you can also get ISC squared credits for that, including our upcoming business CTF. Now that's only open to businesses. So the business arranges it so that their team participates in the CTF.
I'll have to let my company know about that.
But whenever we can offer credits toward an IC2 program, we do. So.
Yeah, definitely, and that's good to know. And again, it's all about training, right? Because the goal within cybersecurity is to constantly be learning and improving your knowledge, and that is an awesome flavor, Kim.
I'm drinking Monster Energy Ultra Paradise.
I know, I've got 3 different ones. I've been drinking Monster all day. Don't get it twisted. Until I went to beer after I got done with work. But yeah, I think any opportunity to learn is a huge improvement. Whether it be Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, eLearn Security, and again, for those that are watching, understand. When it comes to training, a lot of it is continuous learning, and there's a lot of free ways to do it. So for people who don't have a lot of money that they can just spend on certifications, Hack the Box and Try Hack Me have free rooms, have free things that you can do. So please do those. And on top of that, document it in some way, whether it's a blog post or a YouTube channel or whatever, or GitHub, whatever the case may be, document it. Just don't document live boxes on Hack the Box, because people will burn you for that, including myself if I find it. You want to make sure you're doing retired boxes. So just keep up with that and understand that if you document the things that you've done, then when you're applying for jobs, when you're sending resumes, even if you don't get through the HR, gateway, if you're talking to hiring managers, they can find you and find out that you've actually been learning and growing in this field. And as a shout out to Security Blue Team, they have the Blue Team side of what Hack the Box is. And I believe it's called Blue Team Labs, if I'm not mistaken, something along those lines. So they do offer the same concept for those that want to understand the defensive side of things. With that, please get a little understanding of both sides. You should, before you do anything, you should understand both sides of the fence. A, so you can find out what you truly love, and B, because you can't defend until you know how to break into things, and you can't break into things properly until you know how to avoid detection. So you should understand both concepts, the defensive and offensive sides. That's a big part of how I approach training, is knowing both. Now, saying that, I do have a few other questions here that have been interesting. Let's see. Let's find the one. So, do people really do companies hire those that can develop malware? I'm on the fence. I mean, if your specialty is developing malware, maybe you can turn that into reverse engineering malware. But as far as development from a company standpoint, I personally don't see the profitability behind hiring someone that can do that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've seen, well, if you can do malware, you could probably get into exploit development. And there are some companies that work with government agencies that will hire people that can write malware to use against enemies and so forth. So I think it'd probably be hard to find a lot of jobs like that, but I think there is the possibility.
In a sense, that's kind of like the really advanced pen testers who develop their own scripts and tools. I mean, because malware is such a broad category. It's like any software that is malicious in its behavior. So in a sense, some of the scripts that were eventually incorporated into pen testing operating systems like Parrot are malware in a sense, but that's probably not what you folks are thinking about, really.
Yeah, and malware is interesting. And when you're getting into the training of exploit development, to your point, Philip, there's a lot of need for that in the government sector, whether it's as a contractor or working for one of the 3-letter agencies, whatever the case may be. They do find use of that. I don't find much use of that in the private sector. I don't see a need for that. Now, again, if you can flip that into reverse engineering malware and you understand assembly and can reverse engineer those things, then yes, very much so. I do see a need for that in a lot of agencies. FBI, CIA, NSA, even private sector will ask you. There's a lot of consulting firms like Red Siege, and I'm sure there's quite a few others that do reverse engineering malware. A lot of your anti-malware vendors and things like that. So, and it comes down to research. So being able to reverse engineer it, kudos. Being able to develop it, I hope you can reverse engineer it, because that's really where the job is going to lie outside of your government agencies. Other than that, let's see. There when is for it be involved. All right. So not necessarily on the format of training, and I'm hoping to get some more training questions, and we'll talk. I got my own here in a little bit, but Shayna B 33 from Twitch asked if there's any way for noobs and those not yet working in cyber to support and or get involved with Hack Not Crime.
That's a good question. You mean hacking is not a crime?
Yeah, that the whole group and everything for hacking is not a crime.
That may be a better question for Phil, but I know as an advocate of hacking is not a crime, it's an invitation only group. So a member has to vouch for you, basically. Whether or not you need experience in cybersecurity is debatable, but definitely someone in the organization has to vouch for you. And Phil, as you have a lot more experience with that organization, maybe you should finish
Yeah,
the
I'm kind of,
answer.
I guess I'm one of their on their board or something with along with Chloe and Alyssa. I mean, not Chloe and Alyssa, Chloe and Brian. But at any rate, one of the things there is I know people that are members that may have worked in IT, or some people just trying to break in IT that are advocates. So it's all about awareness. So if you know someone, that's the thing, is you know someone to get referred. It's about awareness, retweeting stuff and that sort of thing. So it doesn't really require that you have a job in IT or security, because there are several people that are members that don't have that experience. There are people like your listeners that are going through Hack the Box and Try Hack Me, these different things, trying to learn to break into the industry. So as Kim said, they just need a referral to get in.
That's awesome. So as far as training goes, let's pull this back around to training because there was no other questions, so I figured I'd bring that up. If we're looking at this from an aspect of people trying to break into cyber, I always push for the Security Plus first, and or Net Plus, A Plus. I push the CompTIA basic level certs first, solely because I feel like you should have a foundation. So for those trying to break into cybersecurity, do you feel the same way? Is there some other knowledge, some other certification, some other training they should do? Because as much as college can help, I feel like it can hurt at the same time, because you spend X amount of dollars to go through college, and sometimes you're behind the eight ball even further than those that are still in industry trying to defend systems. So do you feel like some of these certification routes are better? Do you feel like college is better? Like, what's your take on the college to certification and industry ratio of how they should learn?
It's going to depend on the college, because a lot of some of the colleges are kind of behind on the content they're teaching. So that's one of the things, that if you're going to a college that teaches the CompTIA stuff, the CompTIA stuff is fairly up to date. But college, there's some colleges that are really awesome, but then there's some that are just, they've got a program, but they really don't know a lot about it. But from what I'm seeing, as far as people getting hired, if if you're doing all this hands-on training and you do like Security Plus and that kind of thing, employers are seeing that and liking that more than just a degree. Because, even like in recent years, the big four consulting companies have done away with the 4-year degree requirement to get into security. So I think people are starting to see the value of that. And one of the things we see too is, because I teach at a community college, and a 2-year college, and we're extremely hands-on, and some of the universities aren't. There are a lot of methodology, no hands-on. Even like one of the local college universities here, for their Cisco program, they said that there will be labs if time permits. And in the community college, we're all hands-on in labs. You're learning this stuff from doing and not just from reading. So that's kind of the thing that's kind of the downside to some of the security programs in the college.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is hands-on versus theoretical. I find your theoretical classes tend to be behind. Even hands-on sometimes are behind. Like, let's be honest, how many times have we seen the same Windows XP or malware from, I believe it's MS06, I want to say it is. I could be wrong on that, on the exact.
MS 0867.
Yeah, that one. How many times have we seen that same exploit used in every boot camp, every college class? Like, look, I get these operating systems are still around, but can we please up the ante of what we're exploiting these days just a little bit?
Yeah. At least use Eternal Blue.
Yeah, like at the very least. So I see these things, and it's frustrating because, coming from the DoD, coming from the Army, and even going through SANS training, I ain't gonna lie, even in SANS training, that was one of the first exploits they showed us. Was like, oh yeah, this is how you exploit a system and da-da-da-da with Metasploit. And it was like, you realize the operating system we're going into right now, right? Like, are we on the same page of advancement of technology? Like, I get it, these things exist, and if people are running these operating systems like XP or Windows 7, they're highly vulnerable. But can we do some more advanced things? Is that possible to work on like a Windows 10 operating system or Server 2016? Is that in the wheelhouse of what we're going to learn? And I get it. Like I said, systems are behind. So in terms of training, how do we get beyond always training the most basic fundamentals of how to exploit something? Because people, it's very easy to go into Metasploit and learn how to do it. Hell, you can Google it right now and they will show you, hey, stand up an XP box and you can do MS0867. Yeah, okay, we know, but how do you advance the education in such a way that it's more up to date with what companies are using? Because even though you may have XP and 7 boxes lying around, you're still going to run into a lot of Windows 10. You're going to run into things like CrowdStrike. You're going to run into all these different systems that truly, are what we should be concerned with in this field, because you want to be able to help these companies that are up to date, or at least trying to be up to date, get around this. So as far as training, is it a curriculum change? Is it speeding up how we do our curriculums? What do we need to do in the training industry to really keep up?
I think as far as your colleges go, you need to get more people that are experienced, because that's one of the things I see with some of the different colleges. You may have someone that has some security experience, or maybe someone did it at one time and they're teaching a pen test class and they've never done anything like that before. So having experienced instructors definitely helps. And also you need to teach, manual methods, how to use scripts and different exploits opposed to just Metasploit. Because in my classes, I'll show students how to go to exploit DB and look up, exploits to use and talk about that, opposed to just here's Metasploit, here's how you do all that. Because, Metasploit's good and you do need to learn it. That's one of the things with OSCP, that it's kind of good because people are forced to use it, but at the same time, real world, you're going to get to use Metasploit, but you need a good balance of teaching how to use, exploit without Metasploit. Because what happens is people just get used to going in there, they'll search for any vulnerability and that's all they're going to use. And they're not going to try to, use manual techniques or download scripts and stuff.
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits of the OSCP, I think, is that they force you to get away from Metasploit. And it's one of those things where in a pen test, and again, I differentiate. Some people don't. I differentiate between a pen test and a red team engagement.
Mm-hmm.
In a pen test, Metasploit is completely valid. If you can get in with Metasploit and compromise the systems, then game on. Like,
yeah,
you've got a lot of things to go with. But in a red team engagement, which is truly what you should get to as a pen tester, you should want to become a red teamer in some way, shape, or form. And I say that in the context of you should not have to rely on tools. Because if you love hacking, if you love the concept of breaking into systems, then that should really be your focus of not relying on tool sets that are provided to you. And that's not to say that that's not for everybody. It's not going to be the primary focus of a lot of people. But I do think that being able to not rely on Metasploit or Cobalt Strike or any of those, granted, Cobalt Strike is still used to this day in ransomware, which blows my freaking mind. How can we block everything from Metasploit, but we can't block Cobalt Strike? Like, seriously, people, let's get on the ball here. But being able, and I ain't even going to say you have to develop your own scripts, but be able to research things like GitHub and things like that, or exploit DB and be like, you know what, I'm going to put 50 different characters in here just so it changes the signature. That's all it really requires. Change the signature and you'll get past a lot of anti-malware, but people are so afraid and so hesitant to do that. So yeah, from a blue team perspective, now knowing you are both red team for the most part, I've seen the pen testing blueprint. Hell, I own the pen testing blueprint. Knowing that from a blue team perspective, where do you think people should really try to get training from? And again, as someone who helped develop the SBT, the Security Blue Team certification, BTL level 1, with Gabriel, God, for the life of me, I can't remember her name, but Gab Smash on Twitter. Gabrielle Hempel, that's her. And a bunch of others. what other routes for the blue team side of things can people really do?
Yeah, it's an area I don't know so much on the blue team side.
Uh, um, One of the things that we've been doing at Hack the Box recently is our hacking battlegrounds. So those are more like live simulated cyber attack scenarios between multiple teams who are competing with each other. If you want to see one, you can just like search in YouTube, like HTB Hacking Battlegrounds. It's something that we just recently started. It's a program that's going to develop, but in hacking battlegrounds, of course, there are people acting offensively as well as defensively. They're like, it's basically just live cyber attack scenarios where there's like the good guys and the bad guys and they compete against each other. So I mean that's all that I can recommend from the hack the box side. um, Otherwise, there are a lot, there's a I mean, when I think of defensive security, I think of digital forensics, incident response. I think about um, regulatory compliance, and
I love it. You said regulatory compliance, GRC, governance, risk, and
well,
compliance is huge, and that's
well,
something we leave out.
obviously, complying with regulations isn't the same thing as being secure. But at
No,
the
no,
same
but it's a step.
time,
It's a step in the right direction. And when you're
you
looking
don't.
at training, when you're looking at things like that, you should be able to understand regulation and policy so that your organization, at the very least, applies to all of these. So, in terms of training, read the fucking manual, RTFM, not the Red Team Field manual. Read the fucking manual when it comes to policy procedure, whether it's ISO 2700.1 or NIST or PCI or
And
whatever
the
the
thing
case may be
is,
for you.
like one organization, like their PCI DSS, for instance, every retailer who is allowed to take, Visa, MasterCard, uh, Amex, they all belong to that payment card association organization, they will give retailers a manual for how to comply with PCI DSS. And PCI DSS is absolutely mandatory if you're going to take any of those payment cards. So a lot of these and then as far as like the GDPR is another huge one that a lot of companies have to comply with, even if they're not European. The EU government tries to make it as easy as possible. They put, as much information as they possibly can on their GDPR website. And like with PCI DSS, with the GDPR, with various other, data privacy regulations, but especially PCI DSS and the GDPR, those fines are massive if you're found in violation, like if you don't report a data breach soon enough, or you don't handle a customer's data the right way, or you stored it on a server and it was in clear text, or any number of violations like that. Like I know for the GDPR, the fine can be in the tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And PCI DSS fines are also pretty scary. Like they can totally ruin a small retailer. So
Yeah, definitely. So we got another question here, and hopefully we can gear this around training. Shayna, you're killing me. You're killing me, Shayna. It's supposed to be training questions. How would you go about pen testing OT networks? As a worker in critical infrastructure, I can't imagine such a thing would be allowed during active runtimes.
Yeah, I've actually worked for a company and I got to go for some SANS training last year, their ICS training. But yeah, getting permission to do that's pretty tough, and it's really easy for companies to push back on it. For people that work in security, that is a tough one to deal with, because anyone that's worked for any other company doing security, there's only so much pushback that the business units can do to prevent you from doing a pen test. If it's something for PCI, you're going to have to do it. With OT, the biggest thing is they're worried about the loss of money. So if something breaks. So OT environments, it's just really specialized. So you really need to know, have to be specialized in that area. Is getting buy off and trust from the people you're doing those OT environments or ICS pen tests. And I can't think of but there's some government agency that you can actually, if you work for a company that deals with ICS or OT, I think it's like in Idaho or somewhere, they actually offer free training there. And some of the guys I worked with, they actually have like a blue team, red team exercise during that training, so people that are defenders can defend against it and people that are red teamers can hack it. So that's one that's been a pretty good one. I didn't get to attend that myself, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. But following someone like Dragos, like Leslie Carhart, she works for Dragos. She's does digital forensics and incident response for OT and ICS, but people from their company would be a great resource. That's actually when I was looking for courses to take, I reached out to Leslie asking for advice.
I was just going to ask, where would you go for courses for that? Because that was kind of the other question, is training to test OT networks. So we see now with Colonial Pipeline, with a lot of our critical infrastructure, these networks are going to need tested. So where would be the best place to get training for your ICS, your PLCs, your OT? Like where would we go for training for that, so that those that are looking for training in testing critical infrastructure, those that are looking for defending critical infrastructure, where can they go for that type of training?
SANS offers it. They offer the defensive side as well as the pen testing side, because I got to take one of their pen testing courses last year. It's interesting because the pen testing course was a hosted course. Justin Searle, one of their authors of a lot of their content, created the course. It was hosted, like they had someone to teach it. It wasn't directly a SANS course, but a lot of the other stuff is defense, and SANS teaches it. They've got like these little setups with PLCs and all this stuff, and you're trying to defend it. And they even, like during the ICS conference summit that they actually had CTFs at night. So you're trying to attack and defend ICS environments. And I can't think of it, maybe the Department of Energy or someone in the government, they offer this course, and it's a free course, and you have, sometimes it fills up pretty quick. So you have to sometimes you have to sign up in advance. I can't think of the name. I can't think of the government agency, but it's in Idaho. And like I said, they do like a red team, blue team type of exercise. And it sounded pretty good. From hearing what the feedback I got on the pen testing side of some of the things they did there was probably, as good or maybe better than what the SANS course was.
So NERC is the agency, from what Eric tells me, Cyber Pop-Up, and Rob teaches SANS Forensics 578 and ICS 515. So they're both great courses. I will say that if you're gonna look into ICS training, especially with SANS, I swear to God, I hope your company will pay for it. As much as I love SANS, and I do, everybody who's watched this show in the past, before I got my new house and the new office, knows I have like 4 or 5 SANS certifications. I love the instructors. I love what they do. Graham was by far the hardest course I ever took in my life and the hardest certification I ever took in my life. But at the end of the day, they offer probably some of the best instructors for the sole purpose of they need to be doing the job. I know I'm trying to become a mentor through them. You have to be doing the job in order to be an instructor. If you are a full-time instructor, you're not going to become a SANS instructor. It doesn't work that way. You have to be in the field doing it so that you keep up to date on everything that's going on. One of the reasons why they charge so much, because their instructors are top-notch. I'm not going to lie. I've loved every instructor I've had through them. They know their shit.
Yeah, you like for instance, you got Tim Medine, the creator of Curb Roasting. You got him teaching, and he runs the SANS Masters program as well. So you got some top-notch people there. And Ed Scudis, that does a lot of their training, and his company, the Counter Hack, does a lot of the cyber range stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And Kim, answer me this. And I'm really curious, because you've come a long way in this field. You know more probably than I do. I'm not going to lie. Hell, you and Phil both probably know more than I do. With your training, with your come up in the field, what has been the best training you've come across beyond building and doing your own thing? Has there been any certification, any instructor, any course, anything like that that has really helped guide you along the way to get to where you're at today?
Admittedly, I'm largely self-taught. Like the internet is like one massive resource. I hate to toot, hack the boxes horn again, but I mean, one of the things I do as a side project is I do cyber threat intel for a major Canadian bank, which I'm contractually forbidden from naming. And I taught myself how to do that OSINT on the dark web myself. Like, the dark web is a playground if you're a curious adult. Like, just, you can install Tor browser, you can install I2P browser. And as long as, you're an adult and, seeing bad guys talk about bad stuff uh, isn't a trigger for you, then just jump on there. Like, this is just a very specific area of training, which is like learning about the enemy on the dark web through OSINT. But that's how I learned how to do dark web OSINT. I just went on the dark web and I went through forums and I went through dark web markets and I just scoured them and saw what I could find. So a lot of these things, I mean, it's great to have an instructor, it's great to have guidance. Sometimes I really wish that I had instructors, but yeah, I mean, that's the hacker mindset, right? It's like you go out there and you learn things by doing.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what it comes down to, is that mindset, right? Being a hacker isn't always breaking into things. As much as people like to think it is, as much as the media portrays that it is, it's a mindset. It's what you do. It's who you are. It's wanting to learn and grow and find different ways to do things. So yeah, look at the MIT Model Railroad Club, the original hackers. They weren't breaking into computers. They were doing something different. If you haven't looked them up, look them up. MIT Model Railroad Club. I forget the year, but they're the original hackers.
The book that I would recommend people reading is obviously Stephen Levy's Hackers.
I haven't got that one. I'll have to get it.
Yeah, it explains all that history with the MIT Model Railroad Club, with the club at Stanford that Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs and whatnot belonged to. I think that was the name of that club isn't rolling off my tongue right now. But the club that they belonged to at Stanford, where they met each other as hackers, because all these people, all these like major Silicon Valley innovators, they're all hackers. And like, it's not a coincidence that the street address of Facebook's headquarters is one hacker away.
And that's really the key, is it's finding different ways to do things, more innovative. Now, let's not get onto Facebook. I have my own problems with Facebook and IG right now. Still fighting with them and trying to get a hold of them to do some other shit. But at the end of the day, look, people can hate on Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, all these people all they want. Their mindset and the way they do things is just like any other hacker. It's finding an innovative or different way to do things to make things work. Now, is Windows a malware playground? Yes, of course, because everybody fucking uses it.
Definitely.
Like, it has
Android is a
nothing to
malware.
do.
Android arguably is more of a malware playground now than Windows is.
Right? Like, it has nothing to do with the operating system in and of itself, and everything to do with the popularity of it. If the majority of companies are going to use Windows, guess what people are going to target? Fucking Windows. That's how it goes. So, saying that, Phil, I'd love to get your take. As far as training, as far as things go, and you coming up, what was the best training you got along the way? What really sparked your ability to keep growing and learning and going through the
It was hands down the OSCP, because I started my first job without pen testing experience. I'd taken the CEH, which, that's not going to really help you. You know what some of the tools are, and that's the extent of it. But my background was doing some web application vulnerability scans. I had some application security experience, but the OSCP, and I've done a lot of studying over the years. But when I got that pen testing job, I didn't know how to hack, so I had to learn how to hack. So I started in March. I started the OSCP like either April or May. Passed my certification June of the following year, and I really need to learn how to hack, and it helped me, because if you're training for a job, make a job change, then you can take as long as you want to. It's going to take you a little longer in the field. But I was smack dab in the middle of a pen testing job, and I need to learn how to hack, so I had to learn fast. I didn't have time to research and do it all on my own, so I had to go through the OSCP. It taught me how to hack, and the fact that they limit the use of Metasploit was very helpful. I mean, that's once I learned those basics and I was able to build on it, and then I was able to do a lot more, just read some stuff online, how to hack this or that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so final question, then we're going to end the show. Eric Cyber Papa Bellardo wants to know, for threat hunting education, what is the best place to start for learning for beginners, if anybody knows, for threat hunting?
Well, I mean, I explained how I learned to, well, at least do threat intel, right? I learned how to do threat intel on the dark web the way I've explained before. I just went through Tor browser and the Tor network, and I2P browser and the I2P network, and I just looked through all kinds of resources. I spent probably hundreds of hours, like just painstakingly combing through forums and markets. That's one very specific kind of threat hunting or threat intel, though. So I hope maybe Phil has some recommendations that aren't so specific.
I am not really sure, because it's kind of bad, because I don't really focus on stuff outside of hacking or red team. I'm thinking if you go back and if you research any of the MITRE stuff, you could probably find something. I think trying to think, someone had some good information on that off of the MITRE page, because they show you like I think there's some threat hunting stuff related to that, I believe. I'm not real sure.
Yeah, it's all good. Like, threat hunting is a specific field, and it's very much blue team side of things. One of the things I will say is understanding, you don't necessarily need to study threat hunting. To Phil's point, understanding MITRE and TTPs and things like that would definitely help. But it's really understanding baselines. If you see things in your baselines, whether it be in a SIM or anything like that, go above the norm, your net flow logs or anything of that nature, you will see that is really the best way to understand threat hunting, because when you see something out of the norm, you know to look for it. If you see data flow after hours, and you're talking anywhere from 100K to megs and gigs of data, you probably want to look at it. So MITRE is a huge, I think they have certifications out now. So MITRE is a good way to go to understand TTPs, to understand threat hunting, to understand what ATPs are doing. And I think that's a good way to start, is going through MITRE and understanding everything they're doing. But ultimately it comes down to your ability to analyze traffic and analyze logs and analyze data flow. I've worked behind a SIM, and I've pointed out things that need to be investigated by analysts on a regular basis for probably about a year and a half, 2 years. So I understand baselines and how things like that work, and that's what it comes down to, is understanding networks and understanding what is normal and what is abnormal. As much as people hate SIMs are that's your lifeblood if you're looking for threat hunting. They really are. CrowdStrike and things like that, your EDR solutions, they do great at stopping things, but if they miss something, your SIM is going to show you what you need to look at. So
many companies miss so many indicators in their logs before they they purchased I pronounce it a seam solution. Actually, you want a funny anecdote? I'm done the writing for 8 steps, and we just finished the final edits. And, one of the copy editors, I wrote in one chapter the phrase, a seam, like multiple times. And the copy editor had a comment saying, don't you mean A-N, like N? I guess he thought that seam was pronounced S-I-E-M. So it would be N-S-I-E-M. And I had to correct and say, no, people pronounce that seam. So it's a seam.
Nice. All right, so last note, DKH InfoSec on Twitch said Black Hills InfoSec anti-siphon training has threat hunting courses taught by active countermeasures and others. So if you're looking for threat hunting, that's a good place to go. Look, Black Hills InfoSec, I cannot say enough about them. They do amazing things. They have a Discord server. They have a lot of good information out there. They have training. They have live streams and everything else like that on a regular basis. And y'all know me. I boost up everybody I can, and I don't even need to say shit about Black Hills, man. They do so much good for the community that it's unreal. I'm just like a pawn in the wheel of cybersecurity right now. But Black Hills is definitely where to go. But saying that, look, we've hit the end of the stream. I love you all. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Kim, for joining us. It has been amazing, and I hope all the people watching and those that are going to listen to the podcast after get a lot out of this. Saying that, look, down in the description, you have all the contact info for Phil and Kim below, including Twitter and LinkedIn. On top of that, all the ways you can support CyberWarriorStudios, Security Happy Hour, and hopefully I get back into Motivation Monday and Tech Tuesday soon. Just been really busy. It's been hard to get back into it, but I have to make sure I do these shows for you because getting this information out there is important. So I love you all. Take care. Enjoy your weekend, and I will catch you all next time.
Cheers.